Hello, everybody. Welcome to a very fun episode. Today, we're going to be doing a Q&A with John about acting. But first, let's start out. John, I kind of had a random question that I wanted to ask you. I feel like we need to address our listeners more, and I'm trying to come up with a fun idea of like how to address them. So, like, I'm going to float some by you. How does Mospos sound to you?
Mospo,
Like moving spotlight, Mospos?
right?
It's
But everything abbreviated. Are you trying to do
yeah.
abbreviations there?
I'm
Sure,
trying to do it
sure.
breves.
You're trying to abbreviate?
Oh
Yeah, I
God, I
think
hate
it's.
that.
I know that's why I can't really get on board with that with
You don't like it.
with Mospos. No, it sounds like something in the ocean. You know what I mean? I don't know, like these little Mospos.
Little Mospos. Yeah, it's not that
Yeah,
good. Spotlighters was another one I thought of. I didn't really love it, but and then I
it's
don't
not
know.
that witty. It's not
No,
witty
no,
enough.
no.
We're
Yes,
wittier than that.
I feel like we got
Yeah,
to be wittier, but I can't think of anything to
sure.
rhyme with or have some
Sure.
sort of connection to the moving spotlight at all. And it's
Yeah.
like I want to be able to figure it out. I want to line it up to be what it could be.
What we should call our listeners.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I don't know. Criminals. Can we say that? Hey, you
Hey, you
criminals.
criminals,
Hey, all you
you
criminals.
bastards.
You're
Alrighty. Well, I am excited to kind of deep dive with you on this topic because
putting me on the hot
I'm
seat,
putting you
huh?
on the hot seat because you are my acting coach as well, and it is always nice to kind of dive in and hear all the things that you have to say in class. And so I think this would
Yes.
be a good opportunity to kind of bounce some stuff off you.
I
Um,
love it. I love it. Mentor, male role model. There's a lot
yeah,
of
yeah,
other
yeah,
things
yeah.
also besides acting coach. Just put those
Less
all in
good
there.
looking, all those things. Um, so my first one, I was actually so you've been talking about how, especially with the pandemic, you've been getting a lot of self tapes like pretty much every day. I'm wondering how do you tackle that initial anxiety? Because for me, it's always just that I get the script and I go, I don't know it yet. Like I get kind of frustrated with myself without like that I haven't memorized it yet, and like I don't know how
Yeah.
to other than just doing it. Like, is there any skill that you've like tapped into of doing it, or do you just kind of start going?
No, with self tapes, especially if you're getting a decent amount of them, which, wonderful if you are. And some people are like, oh, I want more, I want more of that.
Sure.
So it's good to have that hunger. But when you do start to get them, what I keep finding is when you first get them, Corbin, there is that kind of resistance. I don't know it. I don't know the world. What is it? And I really feel like first of all, hopefully you've got the energy, because if you're like exhausted from your day, you're exhausted from life, it's really hard to get excited unless it's like, the best, most amazing project.
Mhm.
Sometimes we get those, but not always. And what I continue to find over and over again is literally, and I've started to do this now, I'll just set a little timer for like 5-10 minutes.
Mm.
And once I get it rolling at the beginning, then I work for longer and longer. But it really I literally set a timer on my phone and just say, okay, I'm just going to try for 5-10 minutes. And once I get over that initial hurdle, for me, that gets the ball rolling.
Interesting.
And then what I like to do is, what is it that's exciting in this role for me? Like, is it some comedy? So let's have fun with the comedy. Is it emotional? Let's, dive into the emotion. Is it a paycheck? I just want to get paid. I mean, that happens, so what is the thing that's like kind of driving me? And if that is strong, that helps me get over, kind of getting that started. I also think when people come to acting, when people come to entertainment, and a lot of people, use the word fun, and it should be fun, but it's not always fun.
Mm.
And I think that's the big thing where, oh, I want it to be fun. It should be fun. Great. There's also a lot of freaking work behind the scenes that needs to be done. There's also work in front of the scenes. But the point is, you don't always have like the option when you have to work. It's like, you got to do the work. And I think sometimes actor mentality can be like, oh, I kind of have the option, And to me, yes, you can say no to stuff, but the option to not work is not there.
Hmm.
You know what I mean?
For
For
sure.
some reason, it seems easier, especially if you're, and this is where we get into the difference between like an amateur or a hobbyist and a professional,
Hmm.
right? An amateur or hobbyist, yeah, you can just do it when it's fun. You can just do, improv shows. We don't have to learn lines, or, you don't have to really get down and get into it. But if you want to be a professional, you got to do it the days you don't feel like it. I
Yeah,
think,
for sure.
otherwise it's just too competitive.
Yeah, I think with every job, but like when you're trying to find the job that works for you as a person, like it's still work, right? You still have to put it in. If as long as you like 80% of it, which is after that first hurdle or whatever, then you can become a professional in what you're striving for. Um, Yeah, because to me, it's like once I know the words, it's just I love playing. I love trying exactly all the things you're saying. Is this a comedy? What's funny? What is making me laugh? But from the beginning, it's the hardest part to me is trying to figure out like how do I memorize this, which is
Right.
you know,
Yeah. And let's say you're talking about memorization and
yeah,
like that can suck. Okay. So how do you make it suck less? Well, maybe you have a partner that you get to run them with that you have a good time as you're learning them. So that can
mm-hmm,
help. We don't always have that option. Sometimes you got to just kind of grind through it. But the idea is, getting past that point is really where it opens you up and you get the freedom. And it's part of the step to the next steps. You know what I mean?
mm-hmm.
And those first steps you're talking about, whatever it is, memorizing the lines or really kind of, reading the whole script or something, or just learning all that stuff. It just takes time, and you have to be okay, I think, with putting in that time.
For sure, yeah. And with that, how do you tackle a script? Like, what are some of the first things that you kind of start doing once you
Yeah.
get a script?
I mean, for me, the number one thing, first thing I like to do, and this is if you have time. Sometimes if you don't have time, you're just like, I just got to learn it as quick as I can.
Yeah.
I got to try to do as much, and one of the things I say a lot, Corbin, is, if you get an audition or an opportunity, you're not going to be able to prepare in like the day and a half, 2 days, 3 days you have. It's like the 6 months before where you've been putting in the work. You know what I mean? And that's what pays off in those 2 days, because sometimes I'll coach people and I can tell the role is further than they can reach. Now I'll try to get them as high as I can, as close as I can, but it's just like they haven't been working enough, in a sense. They haven't been practicing enough to like totally get there. And sometimes they can feel it. Sometimes they can't. But that idea of just putting in those reps way before then leads you later on. Oh, we have a guest.
We got a special guest star, Quill.
Yes. What's up, Ed?
So we had a little bit of an interruption from your son, Quill, which is awesome. He's the best actor. He's always just begging for stuff.
The thing is, my office, there's not an office in the sense that there's a door. It's just a curtain. So that can be my wife, that could be the dog, and that could be the 6-year-old. So it's a really,
it's an anything goes situation.
This is not Fort Knox here, folks. The gold would be stolen. So
for sure. Well, I'll bring it back. So the question was like, how do you tackle a script? Like, what are your steps? Do you have like a long running list? Do you kind of just feel it in the moment? What are those things that you like to approach with?
Yeah. So if you have time, one of my favorite thing to start off with is some research. And so what that can be is just, you get a script, who wrote it, who's casting it, who's the director, what can you find out about this world? What is there any research out there? Is it, a book that's become a movie? Is it a show that's being rebooted? What can you find out about the people behind it? And that can help just set you up, because in the sense of the tone of the show, of maybe a little bit of the energy of the world. So that research helps get you kind of on the right path. Right. And then when you're getting more specific, like, let's say you've got like 2 scenes to prepare, it sounds simple, but I love just starting with like, what is my objective in this scene? What am I trying to get? What is the thing I'm going for? Am I trying to, impress this person? Am I trying to, what am I kind of fighting for? And once you take a look at that, then how can you make that actionable? Right. So you've got that objective. What kind of actions can you add to that? How can you be proactive and go for that thing? And generally, if it's a good script, then there'll be obstacles. There'll be things not allowing. I love this person. I want to be with this person. They're dating someone else. Okay. That's an obstacle. How do you do that? How do you get around that? How do you figure that out? So I think figuring, with the objective, the obstacle, giving yourself some action, I think you can start there. I think another thing that ties in with all of this is when you're approaching these things, I always think about, I try to like get up on my feet as I'm thinking and writing. So it gives me some energy, right? So I like to, a lot of times people will sit down and they'll start scribbling and they're writing, and it puts them in their head. So with all of these things, I sometimes like to be on my feet. Maybe I'm holding like a 3-ring binder. I can write notes down, but for some reason for me, I like to try to kind of get it in my body, kind of move around, see what pops up as I'm reading it. So I'm not just kind of static thinking, kind of trying to be more physical, getting my heart, all of that stuff kind of into it and seeing what pops up.
I wonder if I stole that from you through like osmosis, because I don't remember you ever saying that you do that, but like, I like to just walk around and kind of get big and just kind of move my arm, like just whatever, go extreme with my gestures just to see what works, what doesn't work, and also slowing down the conversation, seeing what's fun in that sentence. But it's interesting that you say that, because I do feel like I've seen other actors, which is fine. Like everybody's got their own approach, but they sit down and they start writing and they start like memorizing through that approach without doing. And I think that's for me, it doesn't work, you know?
Yeah. I mean, a lot of times the challenge for an actor can be to get things from up here, like down.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how do I get it? How do I push it down? You
Yeah,
know,
exactly.
so it's not just up here, you know? And I think exactly what you're saying, that could be one way to kind of activate it. And, you know, depending on your character, I really also love giving yourself some simple descriptive adjectives. So is this person aggressive? Are they quick to anger? Are they charming? You know, what are some things? And are there some parallels to you in real life, right? What are some things that like, oh, I really have a snarky sense of humor, looking at you, Corbin. Can I bring that to this role? Can I bring that to this role? Does it work? You know, but you don't need to find, in my opinion, 20. You can't play 20. It's just going to get overwhelming. You can have 20 listed, but like, what are maybe 2 or 3 that like, okay, these are ones, you know, that I'm going to love my spouse. No matter what happens, I'm going to love my spouse. You know, I'm going to try to calm it down so we don't fight. I'm going to try to protect them. I'm going to try to take care of them. That is, you know, in every scene I do, she's yelling, hey, it's okay. Versus, you know, hey, it's okay.
Yeah.
You know, and that could be a different person, but the idea is, what are those adjectives that you bring that also kind of work with the character in the story? So I think those are great. Then the next step I would do is take a look at like the place, you know, where you are. That can kind of, you know, that can set you up. You know, I mean, are we in a busy restaurant? Are you at home? You know, there's a difference in the place that then affects or can affect how loud you're going to be, or how soft you're going to be, or how intimate you're going to be. You know, you're at a dinner party and you're talking to the person, you know, right next to you, you know, oh my God, can you believe this person over there? Jesus, they won't shut up,
Larry
you know?
David.
Yeah, exactly. You could be that. Right. And so I think the place can help kind of, you know, set it up. And then, you know, I guess I should have numbered these. It would have helped. I also like to, if I have time, go through and write out what I call, I mean, not what I call, but like the subtext or the thoughts, you know, so the thought can be what you're thinking right before, kind of that's similar to the sentence, or kind of the subtext that you're trying to get across, you know?
Yeah.
Maybe you're trying to say, I love you. And it's like, hey, why don't you come over here, come chat, you know, but underneath it is that. And so, or how does that thought or that subtext kind of help inform the line? And we can dive. Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, I was gonna say, one of the things that you taught me once, and I won't say the full word, but you were like, say in every sentence the F word, you know, just kind of like, just see where that takes you. And especially works with other scenes more than others, but I think it's kind of what you're talking about. It like helps break you apart from that sentence. It helps break you, find that rhythm that you're trying to get to, or like kind of what you're describing too, like coming up with a new sentence beforehand that is similar in the similar approach or vein. I've always liked doing that, just kind of throwing a different word, or like doing it drunk this time or whatever. And that's always like a fun approach in my book, at least.
Well, usually we kind of have a cadence to the way we talk in life. And then when we're learning lines, we're learning something someone else wrote.
Yeah.
And we're kind of trying to put it into our cadence, let's say, but sometimes it doesn't, the two aren't kind of lining up. And so sometimes that thought or that throwing in like swears or whatever can help kind of break up. Let's say the rhythm is a little bit off. So you're kind of trying this thing and it's not exactly working. So you need to like figure out, how am I going to break it up? And how am I going to kind of refine what's working here? You know, and that can come from exercises and things like that. And just the last thing I always think is great for actors to do, not that they all want to be directors, but it's to step back and look at the scene as if you were a director. What do you think it's going to look like? You know what I mean? How do you think, if you were like watching it on TV, let's say, or directing it, what would your character be doing? You know, and sometimes it's kind of cool to step out of it, because a lot of times we see from our point of view, but to kind of see from third person and see that sometimes can give an actor ideas, or can say, oh, this makes sense. My role here is to do this. Let me make sure I'm fulfilling that. Right.
I think that's great, because you're also coming to set with an idea. You know, like you've come up with, you're looking at it, you may be wrong, you may be right, or, you know, you're just at least coming with something. I think that's a great approach to kind of get yourself charged up and excited about the scene if you're already visualizing it.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think and so kind of following those steps, and sometimes time wise, you can work on objective and obstacle and some adjectives, and then you just got to like kind of memorize and, kind of get through it. And, sometimes memorizing quickly, that's something that people, can struggle with. And, one is, I really think it is a skill that the more you do it, the more it helps. So if you're like, okay, I'm going to memorize a page, and then all of a sudden you get like a, 8-pager, it can feel overwhelming.
Yeah.
So you do want to challenge yourself, but also linking the lines to thoughts or images is another great way, because sometimes they're not connected.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you're just kind of holding them, and sometimes, that it makes sense. I just have this line memorized, but trying to connect it or ground or root it to something can really, really help. And another thing, Corbin, I notice when someone like can keep screwing up like a one part, like they can't remember a certain word, it can sometimes be a couple words before it. Sometimes they think it's like, oh, it's the moment right before, but you kind of go a couple words before, and that's where they haven't like grounded some stuff. So they kind of know the first half, but maybe they haven't set up the second half. So it's not always the moment right before the word you're having trouble remembering. It's like, maybe more at the beginning of the sentence or something that sets up that second half. Does that make sense?
For sure. Yeah. I'm flashing to moments of me not memorizing some scenes. Like I remember I'll periodically go back to some scenes that I've been given or have done or whatever, just to see what's changed and like kind of what's going on. And I remember there's one scene that I just could not figure out I was just like, I can't memorize. I have no idea. And then I realized exactly as you're saying, it's like, I have no idea what I'm talking about. Like, I have no idea what this sentence means. And then from there, a couple months later, when I tried it again, I was like, oh, I just, for whatever reason, a different day, whatever, I just clicked and I understood what the writer was trying to say. And I was like, oh, it's so foolish. But then as soon as I got it, it was easy. It was like any other line. It was just memorized, and it was only like 6 words, but I couldn't get it for whatever reason.
Sometimes that happens. And I always feel like good writing is easier to memorize than bad writing.
Yeah, that's true.
So, as actors, we audition with good scripts and bad scripts, and a lot of times good scripts, the most difficult, like for me, is like when I say the same thing like 4 times in a row, but like just a little bit different. And I'm just like, I'm saying the same thing here. Like, like, how do I know, and so that can be very challenging, but usually with a good script, you're not going to have that issue.
That's true. Right. I kind of want to pivot a little bit here, where a little bit more of a fun question. What is your ideal role? What is your ideal movie that you would wish you could be in?
So I love that. I mean, right now, the stuff I love like what Adam McKay is doing. I just think his stuff is so good. I mean, I love how he kind of blends the comedy and drama. It's really well done. But it's funny when you say, what role, I always thought it would be cool to be the cool guy, and then I'm like, but that's not really who I am. Yeah, like Brando.
Give us a little of your Brando.
I'm gonna tell you a secret, but you can't tell nobody.
It's so good.
To ask you a favor.
It's like amazing.
You come to me and you ask me for a favor.
Fredo.
I knew it was you. Like a Brando.
Yeah.
But then I kind of had to give up that idea. And it's interesting. I have this like my own theory, which is I feel like drama is more forever and comedy is more in the moment. So it doesn't mean that comedy doesn't last, whether it's, Charlie Chaplin and stuff, but comedy is much more in the moment. And I think it's interesting how like comedy like doesn't really travel as well internationally, because there's so much that's specific that like to the culture, to the world. Like when I was in Germany, it's like the German comics are making jokes about very different things. A lot of them, unless they're huge, or Americans versus, and so there's kind of like context to what you're joking about. And so I feel so, I don't think that's true, but not that I don't think it's true. I do think comedy can last. And I do think drama can be forgettable.
Sure.
But I really always thought like, oh, drama. But I've found that I just love working on comedy stuff.
Yeah.
I think that kind of world, for me, like an Adam McKay, I think his kind of, stuff is really great.
Yeah. I feel like you're always looking to figure out the story of or what the funny is. Like that's how I feel like how your approach is to every script. It's like what is like what's how can we dive a little deeper for this comedy? I mean, especially when it's a comedy, obviously. But I think that makes sense. Like you kind of have that bug in you. We want to figure it
Yeah.
out. Yeah.
Well, and I think you hopefully know you're on the right path with something when you get into the flow and it feels like
Mm-hmm.
time is like you're not even aware of time.
Yeah.
Right. So like when I go shoot hoops, play basketball, it's like I don't think about anything in the outside world. I'm just there shooting. I'm in that world. I'm loving it. And a lot of times when I've done comedy and also drama, but with comedy, when things are really cooking, it's like I'm just in that world. I'm not thinking about anything else.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a really sweet spot, you know, that I really enjoy.
Yeah. Do you think that's changed with like, getting a family and stuff, or did something change in you?
Yeah. I think what's changed, I think what's changed for me is, and you know, I think this goes for so many actors, is I always feel like getting to know yourself and who you are and who you like not are trying to be, but who you really kind of authentically are, and letting that out as much as you can helps you kind of bloom as a flower.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, I mean, I was, for some reason, I was thinking about like Matthew McConaughey, who I feel like worked a lot younger, obviously handsome, but also kind of knew who he was and what he played. And then he worked his butt off to become, I think, a really good actor
Mm-hmm.
and did more stuff, whether it's True Detective or, you know, winning the Oscar. But I feel like he had to kind of go through that, the ringer himself. But knowing who you are and like what you bring to a role is one of the best ways for you to kind of stand up from everybody else,
Mm-hmm.
you know? And I think that there's opportunities to do that. But if you kind of don't know in a sense who you are, if, you know, or you're not kind of accepting it, you know, like I always say, like in some audition rooms, like that I've been in, where it's like all these like super handsome guys and they're all just like smoldering, and it like, you know, they could be thinking about the dumbest stuff, but they just like, they look good. You know what I mean? It's like, they're like, they look like they should be on the CW, you know. That's not my path. I'm a little more, you know, I'm kind of like, uh, uh, enjoy like charm and wit and talking and,
Mm-hmm.
and just kind of like being loving and caring, you know, those type of things. Not those guys don't have that, but I think that's one thing where I'm like, okay, I have to accept that's kind of more my world. Um, and you know, as I say in class and stuff, my gold, you know. And so what do you think your gold is, Corbin?
My gold. It's interesting, yeah, because I was just recently asked this question, which is why I thought it'd be interesting to ask you, like the dream job and all that. One, yes, the sarcastic, comedic, Jason Bateman esque, I think would be kind of definitely in my alleyway. But I was trying to think of like what, because I too want to be like the cool guy, and I know like I'm letting go of that more and more, right? Like I want to be a Ryan Gosling, but I will never be that, and like that's kind of you like I love the movie Drive. I would love to be in something like that, but I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I would be cast as that guy. I think. I mean, we're both good actors, so we'd be able to like figure something out. But Ryan Gosling is just going to be better at whatever that uh, I don't know, the spice that he brings. He just is so cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I was trying to think of that the other day of like what would be my drama, like what would be my thing that I want to hit with drama, and that's something I needed to do some more soul searching for sure.
Yeah. And I think it's like discovering that for yourself will also help you find, in my opinion, like side projects. And I always think it's
Mm-hmm.
important as actors are auditioning that they have something as a side project that they're excited about, that they can kind of work on, that can kind of dovetail with either the auditioning or the work they are getting. Because, let's say you're an actress and you're doing a lot of horror movies and maybe you love them, or maybe you're like, I don't really want to do horror movies. Well, what's something that you can be doing kind of on the side that can help showcase the
Mm-hmm.
stuff you really want to be doing? If it's not horror, maybe it is horror, but if it's not, it's like, well, what is that? If it's like sci-fi or if it's something else, like how do you kind of create some of those projects that help show you in that light that you want to be seen, that you get excited about?
Yeah, that reminds me of like the It's Always Sunny guys. They were excited to film something. They've shot it a couple of times because they were just having fun. They didn't really think they were going anywhere. They're just like, this is exciting, and they liked the
Yeah.
product that they had at the end and sent it out. Granted, very rare situation that they kind of established for themselves, but Yeah, I think it's just as long as you're having your side projects too, like you can do something to recharge your battery even if you don't like horror, you know.
Totally, totally. Or look at Issa Rae, Insecure. I think,
Mhm.
that started off, I'm pretty sure as like a YouTube show. I think like it was called, I think like Insecure Black Woman or Black Girl, I think something like that.
Mhm.
I think, fact check me, Corbin,
I
later.
have no idea.
But yeah, I'm pretty sure it started off as a YouTube
Yeah.
show, and then, but she was kind of doing her thing, and her it's been very successful. And so I think finding that stuff, um, or awkward, I think it was awkward, um, that, can be what you find for you. And that's where I think sometimes, like, when I'm teaching acting class and we're in there for 3 hours, I'm like, hopefully, people get a lot out of it, but the 3 hours, doth not an actor make, like there's a lot of other time
Sure.
throughout where it's like, that's the stuff where it's the onus is on the person, to be listening to podcasts, to be reading books, to be, watching shows, not too much, but watching shows that maybe you want to be on.
Mhm.
Um, and I think, like, shows that I love. I mean, I love like Arrested Development. I think that was a great show, not like I mentioned Adam McKay, but, um, and I also, for me, I enjoy like being more than just an actor. And what I mean by
Mhm.
that is I like when I'm on a set where I can kind of collaborate, or if I'm working on my own project where I'm also producer, so I can work, with the writers,
Mhm.
if they're open to that, and kind of find the best thing for the story. I think to me I like that collaboration where it's like, oh, that's a great idea. Yeah, let's do that. I never thought of that.
Yeah, I
Being
think
open to that.
yeah, I think that's great. I mean, as much as we want to be just actors, I think we are the sum of our parts. Like there's so many other things that make John up. And I think that's important to know. Whatever excites you in that moment and following that instinct, I suppose. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, that's kind of cool. Well, I think one final question. I'm kind of just a little bit curious about with
Yeah.
um, how do you? So this is kind of a very this everybody wants to ask this, which is like, how do you break into acting? What is
Mm.
the thing that you want to tell people? It's such a obviously there's no one shoe fits all, but like do you recommend obviously getting a class and like kind of
Yeah.
forming community and then obviously going from there to commercials, or do you think just doing a bunch of shorts to be able to get your feet wet on something that's a little bit more fun
Yeah.
in your brain, than a commercial? It would not to knock commercials, but you know what I mean.
Yeah. No. So, I mean, the number one thing I would say is, if you know where you want to end up, try to reverse engineer that as best you can.
Mm-hmm.
So if hey, I really love theater, I want to do theater,
Mm-hmm.
then not that you have to move to New York City, but that's a good place to start. Or, I mean, there's theater all over this country, or find a community theater where you can be doing, 4 shows a year, 5 shows a year.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the idea, and so what I mean is, if you know what your target is, then kind of working back from that can be really, really helpful.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you're saying like breaking into acting, you know, commercials are a great way to pay the bills. So if someone doesn't have, in a sense, or doesn't have a great day job or a flexible one, or they want to stop being a waiter or a bartender, I think commercials are great. Now, they're not always as artistically satisfying.
Mm-hmm.
You're featuring a product, but if you can book them, it's a great way then to have free up days, to free up energy to pursue more, TV and film stuff. And I've also found sometimes with an agency, if you do well on the commercial side and they have a theatrical side that you'd like to be with, they do talk. They're in the same office, even though they'll say they don't. They
Sure.
do.
Yeah.
They know each other. They work together. So if they love you on the commercial side and they say, hey, you got to check out Corbin on the theatrical side, they'll probably take a meeting with you. So to book in one area usually can give you some momentum or some leverage, in another area. Um, I think classes are obviously great. I think that the idea of doing, I think I saw somewhere, I don't know what the number is, but like Meryl Streep, when she was at Yale, did like 18 plays before she graduated or something. I mean, that's a lot of plays. She just
Yeah.
did a
Wow.
lot of plays, like,
Mm-hmm.
and those are like, I'm sure they were high, well done, but it's also like, that's even before she started like getting out and
Mm-hmm.
auditioning and stuff. So, 18 plays under your belt is a lot of plays,
Yeah.
or whatever number it was. And so, finding that I think is really helpful. Finding a group, it doesn't have to be like mastermind group, but finding a group of like 2 or 3 other people. I've done that a couple different times where sat down with friends. We've written down like, in 6 months, I want to book a guest star or a co-star or a commercial, and putting that down then can help you say, okay, I need to take an improv class. I need to do this. I need to do this. I would also just say, throw the timeline out the window.
Yeah, for sure.
So beginner actors, or if you're still, trying to get in, or, don't really worry about the timeline if you can, and don't stress about it. But know that, if you're doing improv shows and you love it and you're enjoying it, that path along or stand up, that path along the journey, or the journey along the path is a big part of it. It's a big part of it.
Yeah, you definitely have to, like we were just mentioning a second ago, still have your life, and kind of you have to get life to be able to infuse for those acting moments too. So like if you have a timeline, you're squeezing as much acting as, it's never gonna work that way. It's too much pressure on yourself. You're gonna be wanting it too much. I think it's important to kind of, still pursue it, set up. There's a difference between like slacking off and also like pursuing what you want. But
and being enthusiastic about it, Corbin. I know that can sound simple, but being excited and just like devouring stuff is a great way to do it. I mean, it's a great place to start. If you're enthusiastic, if you're devouring it, like I've really been lately getting into like real estate and finance books. And so I've been reading all these books, and is it the same as actually out there doing it? No, but at least I'm getting this really great foundational, and I'm like, okay, these things are making sense. I'm understanding all this. And I think having that enthusiasm and kind of that, devouring stuff in the world is a great place also to start.
Yeah.
I mean, I think about that. Listen to an interview with Martin Scorsese. That guy knows freaking everything about film.
True.
Like everything, like it's crazy how much he knows. I mean, I would kind of put his film up knowledge against almost anyone, that I've heard interviewed, and like the stuff he references. And it's like, what if your challenge was to know more than him? Be a tough challenge.
For sure.
Lifelong. But I mean, that's where he sets the bar.
Yeah.
I was thinking about one of our guests, Matthew K. Addison, when he came to like a reading we were doing and pretty much had his part memorized.
That was, I was like, well, we're going to have fun. We're just going to read this play. And then he was completely off book. And I was like,
he was like totally off book.
Yeah.
And I don't think anyone else in the group was like close to that. And that's where he set the bar for himself, which was impressive. I was like, damn, so I think there's people's ability to kind of press the gas pedal for themselves. There's an opportunity to do that. There's an opportunity to be on Instagram and following casting directors and seeing what they're saying and seeing what's out there and seeing, what's casting, what parts you might be right for. There's sides on Actors Access or, on stuff like that. You can be, hey, shoot, this was a role I really wanted to audition for. I'm still going to get the sides and work on it. I'm just saying,
true,
barely anybody does that. But my point is, if that's the perfect role for you, another opportunity is going to come. So when, when you're first breaking in, it's hard because you want stuff to happen right away. But I think having a group around you that's on the same wavelength as you, that's supportive, that's positive, that's trying themselves, reps are good. But I was thinking about this, but if your form is bad and you're repeating bad form, that's not good. So when you're doing reps, you also want to make sure that you're checking in with outside eyes, especially with acting, I think, that you respect, whether it's a friend or a teacher or coach or whatever that is, so that you're heading in the right direction. Because it's I'm thinking more sports references, but like a golf swing, if you don't have someone looking at it, you could be practicing it incorrectly.
Sure. Yeah.
Right?
I also I hate rewatching my scenes and stuff, it's so much, you start picking apart like things that aren't related to acting or whatever. So you just start like going in, but exactly. If you can step back and still view it or have somebody you trust to be able to tell you what's working, what's not working. It's also like, you don't want I guess I tend to overcoach myself, and you'd want somebody who's not going to overcoach you. They're going to pick one thing, you improve it, you put that brick down, you're slowly building the house, rather than me. I just want to dump everything and hopefully it builds a house quickly, which never works. Right. So, Yeah, that's great. Well, this was amazing. Thank you, John. I appreciate you letting me put you in the hot seat and kind of just dive
Yeah,
in.
through the ringer, Corbin. I like it. I like
Yeah,
it.
I had a lot of questions that I don't think I would know how to answer. Like, yeah, I couldn't tell you what my dream role would be, and that's such a complicated one for me. So I
Yeah,
appreciate it so much.
of course. Well, this was great. I'm glad we did it, and this was it was fun to do, and I appreciate your thoughtful questions. So thank you for
Thank you, and thank you everybody for listening. We'll catch you on the next episode. We'll come up with a better name than Mospos. My bad.
it. Bye, you criminals. Thank you for listening to the
Movie Spotlight Podcast.